India, a name very familiar. And we have on the left Vivek Athare. He's the Chandigarh boy, he's done proud to the region in many spheres. Recently, author who's done a book Move on Money. He's done quite well. And I won't take much of time, I'll move it on to Vivek. He'll take on to the session with Gagan and share knowledge and exchange views. Thank you, Vivek. Thank you, Gagan. Over to you, please.
Thank you, Sumit, and welcome to Chandigarh. I understand you have a fairly busy job as we're talking. And it's a nice, pleasant day for you to be here, I guess. Someone wrote recently on Twitter that we Indians are increasingly becoming like the British because we're talking too much about the weather. The British are always talking about the weather. It's raining, it's cloudy, it's sunny, it's cool, it's this. The Indians only when it gets so hot and unbearable that the monsoon is not yet on. Now that the monsoon is there, I think slowly we'll stop talking about the weather. Get on with life. And life, of course, involves a lot of aspects. One of them is working. And working for an organization is what most of us do. Some of us are self-employed professionals who just go about our business, doing what we love and get paid for it, which is a really enviable thing for me because I would love to be playing cricket and getting paid for that, or being an artist and getting paid for that, or singing, or directing films, because if you love what we do and get paid for that, that's the way to be. It's my take. And if not the first love, then the second love, okay. You should at least be part of your job. So since we're talking about jobs and hiring and compensation and pressure and things like that today, before I throw the floor to you, Gagan and I will just go through a few questions and answers which are really relevant to the topic, and then I'm sure we are flexible enough to go a little bit here and a little bit there with our points of discussion. And I was telling Gagan that I was reading in the Economist magazine just a short while back that nowadays employers and employees, they have video games which they can play to assess the manageability of the two with each other. Whether the employer is picking up the right employees, he can get them to play a video game, and how do they do on that video game? What is their score and in what direction do they go? That gives the employer a good sense of where this guy is going to fit in. So one of the things, of course, is if he's a consultant, then the consultant has to ensure that he gets paid a bomb for telling the organization just the obvious. That this is the obvious thing, but I should get paid for it. So the consultant's job. So basically skills like that. Could be anything else for any other fields. So in today's world, things are changing so fast and people change jobs all the time. People change their field of endeavor as well. So don't bank on the fact, I see a lot of young people here, don't bank on the fact that you're going to be doing the same thing for all your life. You may be a banker tomorrow, you may be something totally different 6 years down the line. There are people who jump from one thing to another. One of my uncles actually worked for the government for about 20 years. And he resigned from an all-India service. And today he sings for a living in May with his wife. So he's singers. So don't draw the line and say that, okay, this is it, I'm not going to do anything else. Never be satisfied so much. So with those opening remarks, Gagan, I'll just throw a few questions to you. In India, the scenario is obviously that it's always that the best talent will get the best jobs. Sometimes the challenge is obviously for the right employer to find the right employee, and I guess that's a continuous challenge which you face. So how much of a challenge is that? I mean, you know that there are good people out there, and you know that you're a good organization. But how much of a challenge is it to find those people and to get the right people to come and interact with you and select them? Given the current scenario, is it easier than it was? Is it more difficult to find the right people? Or how does the scenario change now?
I think it's a very interesting question, and I have been certainly part of a lot of debate on this, whether there is a war or talent that's happening across the world. It's a very interesting term that was coined, I think, by McKinsey many years ago, that there's a war for talent. I believe that in India there isn't a war for talent at all. And I say that purely from experience, from my experiences as somebody who leads a HRD function. And I say this because of this. I think there's a war for talent only if you believe in ready-made products. If you believe that you can have one size that needs to fit all. If you believe that, there is a war for talent. Because essentially you're looking for people who are looking for a product in the market that will exactly fit your size, fit your measurement, fit your requirement. And I think that product does not exist. So what one needs to do is to innovatively think on the feet and get products that are customizable. And I call people products now because every one of us is moldable, and we're just not we're not machines, but we all can be molded to what the organization wants. And I can give you examples from my own personal work experience that continues to be that way. So Infosys, my first employer, did that very innovatively. While every other IT organization in India was looking for computer science engineers to write code, Infosys wasn't finding any. So if you ask the HR head at that point in time, is there a war for talent? She would have said, yes, there is a war for talent because I can't find any computer science engineers. Now, what were the computer science engineers doing? All of them obviously were going to the US or the UK, and none of them were actually interested in working in India. So at that point when we put our heads together and we said, what can we do? So came up with this idea that all we're looking for is people who can successfully work in software engineering, get a good product out, test it well, and implement it. That anybody with a little bit of knowledge, skill, and analytical ability should be able to do. So Infosys said, we'll devise our own test. If anyone passes that test, we'll employ them and we'll train them ourselves. So suddenly, you had people from civil engineering background, electronics background, mechanical background, all applying to Infosys. And I'm talking about 1997, 98 actually. And all these people started applying and Infosys started hiring. And that, in a few years, as we all know, became a blueprint for hiring in the IT industry. Now, suddenly you have this demographic dividend that Infosys chanced upon because you had basically anybody could apply to Infosys and Infosys would innovatively expand the talent pool. The same pioneering effort was translated on PhD TV, where again the same question whether we need resources would be employed on day one. Yes, I mean all of us would like people who would come and start hit the ground running, as the word is very commonly used. But I think for a company to succeed, you have to truly invest in every person who comes on board. And by that investment, I mean you not only have to spend time on selection, you can't just hire because the person is applied and therefore you think he or she is good. You have to invest in the selection process, you have to invest in the first few months of that person joining in. You have to ask him what he expects of the organization and then make it work for that person. And train people soon after they join in your way of doing things. If you do that right, I believe over the last 5 years, if you see how much the education industry has expanded and the number of universities, as Ashwiji was saying to me, if you go to even Chandigarh, the amount of universities that exist, I mean, talent is oozing out of our schools and colleges. I mean, and if somebody were to say to me in India that there's a war for talent, I look at that with good old-fashioned journalist skepticism and cynicism.
Thank you, Gagan, for that very elaborate and very pointed reply. And that leads us to the next point, that when you spend so much time, effort, and money on recruiting someone, training someone, and then if that person leaves, so the attrition rates in India, so how are they doing, and are there any no poaching kinds of agreements that you have with similar organizations? That when you spend so much time, effort, and money on a particular person, and the next organization, let's say CNN again, I don't know the others, if they do the same and then they grab your chat. So do you have such agreements, and what is your take on attrition?
It's a very interesting question, and I'm sure all of us know about Unilever and Procter & Gamble in their household names. Now, apart from being household names and in the FMCG industry, Unilever and Procter & Gamble are also known for bestowing on the entire cross-section of industries the leadership talent. If you look at the number of leaders that have graduated or that have been through the doors of P&G and Unilever, it's surprising. These people have given such a lot of talent to the industry, it's not funny. So the point I'm trying to make is you will have good people, they will work for you, they will enjoy their time there, and they will move on. Retention up to a certain level, I believe, is great. But if you're saying to someone, we can't do without you, and therefore stay, I think that's a fool's paradise. No matter how important a person seems today, tomorrow is another day. ABTV itself is a pioneering effort. We've seen Rajiv Sardesai starting a completely new era of competition for NDTV. We've seen Arnav Goswami doing that, and now the industry, I believe, is much more healthier, much more competitive, and there's a place for everyone. I mean, India, the size is so mind-boggling that there is space for everyone. So I think attrition numbers are good measurement of how we're doing, but that's not the end of the world. But at the same time, I'm a firm believer in stay interviews and not exit interviews. Lots of HR people love to do exit interviews. They think they give you great feedback about what you're doing wrong, what you're doing right. But I think most exit interviews tell you two things. That the person was dissatisfied with their role, which means they were not getting promoted fast enough. Everybody wants a new designation every year, actually every 6 months. And everyone wants double their salary every year. Now, therefore, exit interviews will say, I'm dissatisfied with my salary, I'm dissatisfied with my role. And I dare anyone to tell me, please tell me if there's anything else you get from exit interviews. Yeah, they'll mention other things like training and my career path and all that. But they're saying that only because the questions are there. I mean, they don't want to say all that. All they want to say is role salary. That's it. So, and this is my own experience. So what we do is stay in interviews. What can we do to make you stay? Now, if we can do that, we'll do it. Otherwise, you won't be doing anything. So, attrition is a challenge. People will leave you. But if you have ways and means of getting in fresh talent, it might do your business a world of good than to have people who really don't want to work with you, but they do because they have no choice. So again, part of attrition is also people's identification with your product. If you have a product that you can get people to believe in fundamentally, I think you will have less natural attrition happening. I'm sorry, a lot of my examples will be from Infosys because it's very close to my heart. Even today when somebody asked me a question, I said we at Infosys instead of saying we at ABTV. So it's a big problem. I have to get over this Infosys obsession. But Infosys created a product for banking called Finacle. It was called not Finicky, Finacle. It's was Finacle, and nobody wanted to work with Finacle because Finacle was implemented in countries, in the sub-Saharan countries, in Eastern Europe. They're not really the cool locations for overseas trips. So why would people work with Finacle? And this is said to people, Finacle is your product. You design it, you develop it, we don't say a lot. If you can get the bank to buy it, it's yours. And people started identifying what they were doing because they would say, ICICI Bank runs on what I did. If you log into the ICICI screen, you will see Infinity on that side, Infosys thing, that I have done that. But it runs on Finacle, the entire core banking of ICICI works. So you've got to get people to identify you will have this attrition. But it's difficult to do. But those are things you have to think about. And not just numbers, because sometimes we as HR professionals get blinded by numbers because management thinks objectivity is everything and therefore HR has to be measured by some objective criteria and attrition happens to be one of them. And finally, I think HR department has the least to do with attrition. So it's all caused outside, it's all reasons beyond HR's direct control. But finally, you're measured for something that you have no control over. So I keep pushing back. In NDTV, it's easy to push back, because you know everybody. But in large companies,
I fully agree. There have been times when, especially young people, there was a saying in IT in about 2004-05, and they would say that a young person would drive his car to whichever company he felt like driving to. And there was no loyalty to the previous one, he just went and joined. So I suppose at some point of time, just the numbers, the package, the role, do give way to some other finer points of life. Maybe inspiration, maybe a leader. Maybe there's a leader at the helm of the organization who you just idolize, want to work for that organization because of him. And at some point of time, if he leaves, then you're also ready to quit. We're talking about Infosys, and I know a few people who do work on Finacle, and I find that they talk with pride in their voices when they do, like you said, Infinity or something else. So there are products and there are areas of work and there are leaders who could probably influence the decision on staying with an organization or leaving. How much do you think these things play a role? Will it play more of a role as you mature in service, or is it equally applicable to the youngster? How much of a role do these things play?
I think they play on everyone's mind. It is a fact. If you truly have an inspirational leader, people do tend to identify with that. But having said that, it's like putting all your eggs in one basket. All of us do like to be led by a leader who's very well known, who's inspirational. But there is a downside of that, and it's a practical world. I know my inspiration, and I take names here, and it's very important to take names. My inspiration in 1996, 95, college and all that, there's an India Today front page cover post was Rajat Gupta and his family. I don't know if you remember that. It was at the time he'd taken over as head of McKinsey, and it was the first time an Indian had taken over as the MD of McKinsey. It was Rajat, his wife, and 3 daughters at that point, if I remember. And it was a picture taken in Manhattan. I remember it very clearly because I said, I want to be him one day. He is what I want to be. I set that up. And I set that up for myself, and fast forward to now, I'm not so sure. I really am not. So, the point I'm trying to make is, and whether Rajat Gupta gets a jail term or not is besides the point, but my faith is severely shaken. So, that's what I mean by putting your eggs in one basket. You can't put everything on one inspirational leader and hope that he's infallible and things like that. Because we're all humans. We all have our frailties, and we're all susceptible to doing things that perhaps fall foul of other people's beliefs and values. So therefore, you need to create an atmosphere for people that will hold them back, something more than that. And yes, it makes a difference. Of course, when I said that salary and designation is all that people care about. These are two prime factors. You pick up any survey in the world and these two factors will be amongst the top three. But there is an intangible. There is a sense of pride that companies tend to build in themselves, in the work that they do. And there are organizations that have done path-breaking work in building this sense of pride. Of course, Infosys is a clear example. The Tatas is a clear example of you've been through. I mean, the kind of passion and zeal that you work with in some of these companies is exemplary. It's because they build systems that support us. I'll give you an example. That Satish Pradhan, I know